Hello, everybody, and welcome to Outsiders versus TT9. Our two Russian teams going up against one another. It's a classic game here in EU League, and we finally get it in Playday number 7. Hello, this is the Analyst Desk. I'm Nostematic, your host. With me are Anne and Fresh. We're going to talk about these two rosters to set the stage for you, because one of them is down on the ruts, and the other one has a chance at the top 4. I know it's not a wide chance, but they do have it. It's not the first time. Let's talk about TT9 first and get them out of the way. And this squad, yes, they might have 0 points, but my God, they've had some pretty good success against big teams.
Yeah, exactly. They've had some rounds and they've shown some good things. I think specifically they're trying out certain things, and then when it works, they're like, you know what, we'll just do it again. And at that point, you're becoming a little bit predictable and you make it easier for teams to read into you. There's also moments where I've missed a little bit of team play in certain panic moments from them. I recall last map when there were retake situations and they would just not play together. Like, they would play solo, they'd all try, like, do different things. And well, guess what? With a retake like that, it's not going to work. So I'm missing a little bit of team play there.
And I think the team play point is the key one. If you saw in the previous graphic, in the team card graphic, 25% attack win rate is just simply not good enough.
No.
1 in every 4 attacks. You know, you're not setting yourself up. If you start attack, you're not setting yourself up at all, right? And you talk about team play, but it's not just team play, it's problem solving. They will come up against a defensive problem, whether that be a shield, a runegate, utility burn, 3 people not wanting to live, whatever it is. Plethora of problems that you can face, breaching, whatever. And when they fail, their answer is, let's just throw bodies at it, and then they all just get wiped out. And it's why when you see in the EPS and the KD, it's not looking too good. So if they can solve that on the attack, then they can be a good team on the maps that they play. But it's not, overall, it's not a great picture to look at from the outside.
That sounds like my rating experience with Hap and M. Anyways, moving on to Outsiders and what they have to offer on the other side, because they might not be too deep into the fight in the top 4, but they've been big upsetters here in the league.
They really have been. Yeah, we saw what we saw from them last Monday against Rogue wasn't too bad. They get some rounds, things go well, and then once again they're looking at a loss. We've seen both teams work really well with nades. This team is really good with that too, but something specific in this team might bring a little bit of tension up towards this specific matchup. Because can we call it maybe a little bit of a revenge tour or seeking for revenge? If you look at the players on this roster, we'll have Joystick, their coach, we have Dan and Always, and well, they used to be teammates with Scyther, then they got kicked, and now they're playing against him.
Yeah, obviously Dan, you know, Always, Joystick, poor Shepard, who's just not, you know, he's sat at home watching. We're all on the previous roster there, you know, TT9, where we played an SI final, you know, with Cypher 8 months ago. So, like, for them, they want to go to the major, but there's that little bit of a, we want to win this for a bit of revenge as well.
I mean, beating your, I guess, local opponents or local rivals is the most important thing in the day. We talked, you know, about Empire VP. It's pretty much the same thing here with TT9 and Outsiders. So how this will go is going to be pretty important for both of these two squads. And, you know, before we get into our map bans, who's really got to show up, in your opinion, for this? And players that we look forward to seeing really performing well in the day.
Okay, I want to see one thing, and that is Dan play Dokby. Now that Dokby has been buffed, I want to see him use it more. Hopefully it won't get banned against him. Well, he's got to step up for sure. We were talking about Always as well. If we're looking at the side of Outsiders, we've talked so many times about Emission as well. Well, he has to step up for sure, together with Exodus. I think if you look at those two front lines of the team, we're talking about those two players, mostly.
I think whichever team wins this, because I think it is a little bit more 50-50 than people think, will have improved one of their key attributes. Either TT9 will have improved their attacks, or Outsiders will have improved the defense. Now, you've got one side that's, you know, both teams are comfortable on one side and not on the other. So I'm expecting to see whichever map we go to, a very high quality half and then a very not so high quality half, but whoever improves in that half will probably win the game.
Something I'm maybe a little bit scared about, if you mentioned the defenses of Outsiders, is that they rely on certain things. They rely on a Goyo to utilize and help extend the round a little bit in their favor. Last game, they relied on the K to keep the hatches closed in lockers. I think that was a majority of the reason why Rogue kept losing those downstairs attacks. If teams read into that, and they ban the operators that you work so well with, then what else are you going to put out of your back to make it work?
Yeah.
All right, let's see which map we're going to be playing on. I wonder what Jack. We're looking at one another. So what did you predict?
It was very hard to predict. You know, and the reason it was very hard is because TT9 have started leveraging a bigger map pool because they played Bank. So we generally could see TT9 go to a Clubhouse, Oregon, Cafe, one of those maps that's their like big, one of their big map pools.
It's Cafe Dostoevsky.
There we go.
Bank banned out, and who banned Oregon? That was TT9 earlier on. So we will have a TT9 get to pick Cafe Dostoevsky. They start in the fence. Outsiders wins for the attack start.
This is the perfect scene for this matchup. Two Russian teams, a Russian map, if we may say so. One game for Outsiders in the past 4 months. They haven't. TT9 hasn't played it at this stage. In that game that Outsiders played, they had a really good defensive win rate. So if we're looking at a defense that is maybe a little bit shaky from Outsiders, they can pull similar defenses today. They might have a really good shot.
I think in this iteration of this roster, the best map that this roster's played, the best fixture that this roster has played was when they played Cafe. They played Cafe Stage 2 up against Navi, and they decimated them 5-1-1 from, well, it was Pones, it's now TT9 in the last stage. So we're setting this up as Outsiders love this map, TT9 love this map. They're both really good at it, and actually it's looking like a very nice, juicy map to go on to.
I always loved seeing Pasha playing on Cafe, just the way that he handles it. But the problem was, in the day, we're talking a year ago, was how to handle attacks. So we'll see if things have changed since then. And Fresh, thank you very much. That was a preface, a prelude to TT9 versus Outsiders. Our beautiful casters are sitting and waiting for the action, so let's not keep them waiting too long. It's Hap and Em. Enjoy.
Thank you very much, Milos. And yes, it is us here, ready for the CIS region showdown to see if it's a grudge match.
We're going to have to find out. One of these two teams is still in good contention for a potential run at a major, so we'll definitely look to pick up as many points as they can. That team is, of course, going to be Outsiders, currently with an 84% social vote. Going up against TT9, a team who has struggled so far to get more proper points on the board.
You say proper points.
Yeah, points. Points in general, I think.
Points in general. They've struggled to get points in general on the board. Yeah. So yeah, it's a tough game. It's a tough game to call because it's two teams that know each other well. Two teams that have had history together, playing together and against each other. They're obviously same region, some from the same team. It always puts an element of two things: knowledge and pressure. Knowledge being the sort of forefront. Yeah, they know how each other likes to rumble. They know each other's strengths and weaknesses. They know how they might be able to put the pressure on. But B, the pressure. It's something that sort of cooks you. There's an unending sort of conversation about a game. If you go and you play against a stranger, it's a tricky game. You can sort of play to a level. If you play against a friend or an enemy or a co-worker or someone with a connection, not to make assumptions on the relationship statuses between the teams, but someone with a connection, there's heat there. There's a certain something that you cannot quite comprehend unless you've got to try and run it.
The thing is as well, right, the CIS region has always been very competitive within themselves, and the teams, back with the alt rosters, used to be trading wins left, right, and center in their own regional tournaments. And now it's coming here up towards the European League, where these points are up for grabs. It's the last stage of the year. It's the last time these two teams will be playing each other this year. Unless maybe they go for SI Pulse.
You never know.
You never know. They might meet each other there. And both these teams want to be locking this out with a victory. But as mentioned, Outsiders, they are chasing a major spot currently. And if you look at the right top, you see 7th, you might be like, well, there's still... it's not...
Are they? You might be like,
really?
Are they? Yes, as strange as it is to say.
He was quite close.
Yeah, that's it.
It's all within 3 or 4 points. There's still 3 more play days to go. If the top 4 have slip-ups, then suddenly everybody is going to be on 1 or 2 points distance here. And that is what we're aiming at here. Also important to note, though, if only 2 points get picked up from by Outsiders, the first place is going to be out of reach. Because Rogue already would be too far ahead. So, well, not that they're probably aiming to get that first place, they're probably just focusing on the major first. It's always a nice little extra story to follow.
It's something that if you missed the pre-show, we highlighted it a bit before. Technically, there are ways to get teams locked in and out today, but there's a lot that has to sort of fall into the route to get teams locked in. We're likely to get 1 or 2 teams locked out today, but locked in is an entirely different story that will probably get itself said next week, next Monday. Now I've said it, every result's going to go the way to get some things put together. But here, it'll start with this, a showdown where outsiders are the ones with all the pressure. As TT9, if you're unaware, are the only team technically out of contention.
Yes, they have no ability anymore of making it to the major. And thus they don't have any pressure anymore, of course, coming down into this game, but for performing against their fellow regional potential mates, as you said, not assuming any of the relationships between these teams. There's a bit of challenges coming down on towards Pixel. Nico, he's receiving quite some heat, a couple of grenades bouncing around, but nothing is finding him as of yet.
And with the Nook off the board, it's going to make that sort of slow creep game that teams love to play on the approach here towards Library, and the pressure put there trickier. Outsiders aren't going to be able to sort of run that as a game plan here either, even though there's this presence, there's Exodus sort of lurking around on pillars, trying to cause a problem. There will be an engagement. You can see an Ash going for the wide rotate. The pings are coming through onto that player as well. Pasha is on a hunt, and Malusi, I think, has a little bit of a premonition there of hearing a repel and making sure they don't get caught out. The player's forced out. Exodus with jump round the pre-fire. Will they make a connection? Oh, perfectly played there by Pasha.
Well done. They realized he went downstairs, so Pasha followed as well, but WTG will be able to reply. Milan hits the deck. He's not going to be able to have any impact on this round whatsoever. A jump out comes through. Pasha will catch him. Not much damage done. Actually, Always, who was up on that repel, took most of it.
I was going to say it was the jump out, maybe to try and get the catch there. They got the single player out of it, but at that point, they're sort of stuck outside. Pasha's just going to repel their way up. They had somebody coming down from the top as well. They didn't really have any route to go, and they didn't want to risk the hop over. Can they break through the mirror windows? That becomes the big cost. The first gets popped off, and it makes this position a lot more awkward to play, but Scyther can still swing it, but gets swung. Rask with a needle point connection onto the back, making a picture that is probably not in TT9's preference. Down with one more over the top, 20 seconds, a single player left. Amision, the backline player, and the big draw for a lot of TT9 fans. Can't quite get that first connection. Rask is going for the plant, a great bit of movement. The kit is being put down just on the other side of a wall. C4 has just put on the corner. He cannot quite get the connection.
I was wondering about that C4. Might have thought that was for a bait. If he would be chased down, that, you know, he could blow it up. By the way, no connection further than that. Not another ace clutch for him to get on the board, or, well, 1v4 clutch in this instance. And Outsiders will take that first round off the board. I was going to touch on it. The Azami band, of course, usually used in Piano to create that giant maze with, well, keep barricades up everywhere, blocking off the normal lines of sight, really changing the dynamic of attacking through there. But instead, the mirror has been left open, and mirror is quite difficult to clear out on some of these walls. You just saw one of them, Piano, basically becomes unplayable if you're an attacker due to the fact that there is just these long-range angles, and that forces them to walk through from Cigar, just instantly into the site, see if you can lock it out that way. Managed to do that well on Outsiders, but mainly due to some sharp shots coming down from the Outsiders players as well as they were being shot at. The jump outs as well, called off just in time. All these little things result in that round win. And now, as we take the top 4 again,
And now,
it is a question whether or not things have changed on the TT9 side. I mean, I don't see a mirror anymore, so clearly not too happy about that one.
It was shut down very well. I think you've got to sort of look at how Outsiders attacked the space. They took the pressure over onto Cigar at the same time. The pings on the pillar player. They knew when they had to act. They knew when they had to pull out the player. It's something that we sometimes see Outsiders, I think, struggle more with on their defense. Sure, it's a meta that's played a little bit away from defenders at times and points, but you got to remember on Cafe and the maps that we've seen them sort of struggle on before, it was a tightness, a quick response. They lost the one, but then again, another quick response to the pick up against WTG. They made sure that they were active in what they wanted to do and get it done before time became the biggest issue, but a 20-second difference, and it might have been. A slightly different setup here. Again, that sort of similar hunt. They're looking for a loose thread to pull. They're looking for a player to maybe force out a position. It seems like TT9 aren't going to give it so directly. They have one, I think, lurking around. Yep, Exodus this time. Instead, he's on the bottom, rotating towards Library now. I was going to say he's around Train instead, but it seems like he might try and retake Pillar as WTG suffers massively on white.
believe that was a grenade that just popped off right in front of him and dealt most of that damage. But it seems like Outsiders is eyeing up to just go for a bit of an aggressive push right here. Magnet will catch off that grenade, so that utility will stay put and safely in place. And Outsiders now, they need to find just that one entry, just that one opening. And if only one of the TT9 players overstays their welcome, that might just be handing them the opening they're looking for.
An air jab just got popped there on the corner by the sounds of it. I think caught by, Magnet as well. There wasn't really anyone that was in a position to stop it. 90's held a little bit more passively, I say, as he swings. Tries to find the fight on the door. Everything's being caught out. Hope you could try and get a little bit of a, sort of swing during the explosion of the grenade or just before on the Wamai disc, but hasn't quite been handed them. Here, Outsiders, they're sort of knocking on the door, and as I said, TT9 aren't quite giving them that loose thread to pull. They're sort of keeping themselves a bit reserved, and they're going to have to go for plan B. A bit of a rotate over east, and Dan taking the head off a Scyther.
And that's the opening we're looking for here. He finds his second one, and now the side is slowly starting to be ripped apart here. Still two players holding off. One in the freezer, WTG, low HP next to that double door. If he takes that gunfight again, he might just lose his life instantly due to the low HP he's on. Player rotating back up from the white stairs as well. Gives away that position due to that re-engagement of the Syria laser gate. And that must mean that Outsiders do have a proper clue now of where these last two players are at.
But the one touch just behind the back-end barricade makes this a dead man's land of trying to cross it. Dan's getting that Malusi Banshee on the closed door, but WTG's able to take one out, even with the sliver of health. Looks for the second ping a bit too high, but Nico over the top takes off the cover of the head. You're looking at 10 seconds, and here they've been held at bay. Dan is doing his best to try and drive the plant, and Dan with a 4K. If he wasn't there, the round wasn't theirs, but he was there.
He definitely was. He opened it up. He created that, opportunity to start pushing the side with those first two initial kills, then pushed himself into the piano, which, the round before wasn't really playable due to the fact that the mirror windows were out there and still being manned. Those were left behind now. He could actually push it, went through Pixel, and found two more through the rotation. And as you mentioned, if he wasn't there that round, probably wasn't theirs either. So luckily enough, he showed up at the moment he did. And that brings us to that to 0. There you have it, the qualifying probabilities. Outsiders could be going up to a 24%. And with a regulation win, it is still looking pretty dire, but not as dire as TT9's, which is just the cannot qualify.
Yeah, I don't think you can get more dire than...
They've been locked off pretty early as well.
It's what happens when you go 6 games without a win. This is the bearer of bad news here.
Seems to be the case, indeed. If you don't win, you won't qualify.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing. I mean, we talked about them on the previous sort of showdown, is although they were sitting towards the bottom of the board, they'd had scrappy games, they'd had scrappy fights. It's just missing that final connection. A lot of 7, 4, 7, 5s. Unfortunately for them, but Outsiders, they know the importance of this game, and we talked about their run, their possibility of making it to a major, the change of faces, and how, parts of this roster have always been the bridesmaids, and parts of them has been on the biggest stage. It's that sort of change-up that you kind of got a bit excited about, and this is a game to prove that.
It is a game to prove what you're capable of, indeed, and so far they're doing quite well. They have shown that even though if they run into that wall and seemingly cannot get through it, someone just pulls the trigger, someone just finds that kill that is so desperately needed so you can start snowballing the site. It's worked twice now, but that is also a thing you cannot keep on relying on. You need to make sure that you are able to win it methodically. And this round will be another attempt at it. Quick clearance of the top floor. The first floor as well is being droned out as we speak, whilst Milan is pushing himself downstairs. Tracks are being tossed in to ensure no one is coming back up towards that middle floor and, eventually, potentially even the top floor. Just a good bit of flank watch, a bit of, control of the map at the same time.
Look at this, a quick pace clear. They're trying to get an angle on anyone that might have been close enough to get an angle on, but TT9, again, they're playing their cards close to their chest. They've got themselves spread out around the ground floor. It's a hold that you can do. You have yourself the extension around onto, the bakery itself with the Echo drones keeping a watch towards VIP and Cocktail on the back end. You have a little bit of a pop-off and an almost response there, but always just playing himself. Bit of caution from the sledge, and emissions forced out. It's what they're sort of going for here. That steady clarity across the board. Hope that they can just find a pocket to plant in, as everything's red from above, but still no entry engagement yet. They might need Dan to start doing Dan things again.
They know exactly where these Yokai drones are going to be located, so those shouldn't be a surprise for when they do go for the execute, because the more time that ticks away, the more powerful those Yokai drones will become, of course, with the denial opportunity they bring. So they just need to go for a bit of a push right now, and that's exactly what the Ossa is doing, just preparing themselves, providing themselves with a shield, and now going for the plant. However, the cover dies. Are they going to be able to get this off, though? 45 seconds soon to be on the clock, question mark?
No, Nico swung the corner, got the kill just in time. WTG late to the party, but probably happy to see corpses by the works of Nico. Huge swing. And this is it. Suddenly Outsiders, they found themselves outside the site. The kit's in there, gets one on the long-range kill. There's somebody tucked on the close corners, able to get themselves down into a technical 1 versus 1 with the Gon 6, but the other player is in Narnia. And this is a TT9 round.
To slaughter in the end. TT9 will be able to pick that up. Well done by Nico, just tossing himself out of the Yokai drone, not in position. And of course they knew that due to the fact that the IQ was on the board. And Nico he ran for it. And I think that was like half a second, maybe even less, the moment he stopped that from happening. A tactical timeout will still be called, though, by TT9, as that is not quite how they imagined the round to go. Because, again, it was quite close that they actually managed to stop that plan from going down.
It couldn't have been closer. I
probably couldn't have.
There really was just a split, just a teeny tiny split second in between that. We'd have to see the replay and see it slow down. We were looking at an Echo drone that was too late. If that Echo drone had hit the roof, I think they might have been able to stun a man who was already looking up from the ground, and maybe they would have lost the follow-up fight, but still, it was that sort of takeaway there. And TT9, they want to have a conversation. They know that Bar was a site that slipped away from them twice. They know that that one came down to clutch. And it came down to the fact of, you're curious, I guess, when the call came through of they're inside the site planting. Because suddenly having a swing on that double door, it comes with the clarity of calls of they're in site planting. They got the cover early. And I guess you're always curious, when was that made apparent?
The thing is, there was also no one in VIP, if I remembered correctly. At least there was smokes down to cover a 4 player there, but I believe they indeed did not know until they saw the ace run by. They actually managed to pick up that kill, and then the panic starts to occur. It's like, oh, they are inside. They might already be planting at this moment. But of course, we will never know. And it's, an interview question could clarify that later on, but
5 seconds left.
The 2-1 scoreline. Outsiders so far probably quite happy. Probably would have wished they were able to pick up that last round as well, because everything seemed to be going quite well up until Nico jumped over. And that's again why the pickup on the ace was so important, because that could have been the cover. That should have been the cover onto the Ossa going for the plant.
All right, Outsiders, that was also time for you to have a conversation and I guess see what you think didn't quite work about that. There was a bit of a barrel through. Obviously, the Ossa used the shield as their own cover to then try and get the plant down, but didn't want to deploy it. I think they might have thought they were a little bit more secretive than they were. They didn't want to make the loud sound of a Talon shield being deployed, and that's why they were caught the ace just sort of barreling across the site instead of maybe holding onto the chassis and going for a swing round there. But you know, that's one of those sort of problems of, okay, well, now we've had a minute to have a conversation, or 45 seconds, we can see if we can try and slow that pace down. Here, the pace is going to start on the top floor, as it often does. They're going to try and clear here across, get some vertical control, and just steadily piece apart these top 4 players.
Pretty, well, standard method here for Outsiders to work yourself top down. Need to get that verticality onto the direct side, of course. That is what this side is known for. Wall gets breached down. There is going to be 2 ADSs out there, so if they do try and get rid of that shield, which just has been droned out, it should be caught off by one of those ADSs. So they need to get some flashbangs down range, just to make sure that a breaching round would stick on that shield. There you have it.
Yep, there it is.
Second.
They're
Best
burning.
opening.
Yeah, Cypher's going to see if they can try and swing into the angle and get a surprise fight. The drone just rolls on by, and well, he can't hit a body and can't hit the drone yet today. It's been a rough start for Scyther. Just saw the tail end of a player is caught and revealed. Dan gets a bit of revenge on a previous teammate.
Must have been a whole lot of stress coming down there for Scyther. Just all these drones around him, the explosive, the flashbangs coming through, and every single time he checks, that's a grenade. Beautifully tossed in, always. We'll find another kill, and that is the opening onto the top floor now. C4 pops, will at least find Dan. Brings it back slightly, but the top floor has fallen.
Imagine a lot of work to do if he's going to see if he can try and keep himself alive inside reading. He knows the pressure's going to start to hit downwards soon. There's also the appearance around towards the Christmas side door on the swing outside. So it's just a sort of steadily falling place and pace that he can kind of keep himself alive with. The pings on the pillar player. Milon wants an engagement. Oh, just looks away at the worst possible time, but does get the pickup. Pasha is supporting there. One up brown stairs, and Pasha still supporting. The man is at the top, and as I said, Emission's going to have some pressure up here. He's able to swing onto one. They know the calls come out. The plant's going down. Everybody's rotated around. There's one to his left. It doesn't quite see him. The fight is there. Gets the cover. Doesn't quite get the planter. Run out of bullets. Emission, he's under huge bouts of pressure. They know where he was last. One of the players is peeled off. Going to head up to the second story. The other one is behind him. He's tucked around. Going to hold on for now. The swing's about to come all the way around the corner. Well, Milon, he was still in the territory.
He knew he went outside, he knew he went up to the top floor. That is that small gap he had to go for the defuse attempt there, Amy, because if he would have stayed, he would have had to go for a vertical gunfight and a horizontal one and still have enough time to go for that defuse. So I guess it was the best bet he could have gone for at that moment in time. Unable to, unfortunately, connect on the Hibana. He saw one extra bullet, and that would have been another denied plant coming now from TT9 onto Outsiders, who now find themselves on 3 rounds against the just one. And that top floor beautifully taken under control. And you mentioned it, Pasha coming in with that support vertically first onto the player on pillars, having to rotate out, gets caught off, and quick response on the player pushing up Brown. Again, saving the life of Milon there. And this team play, that's exactly what we want to see from Outsiders. Just able to help each other, able to push each other just over the finish line when it's necessary. And STT9, well, they might be lacking that here and there. There's no real trade game coming through. Exodus and Cider both still on 0 kills. Haven't been able to find that connection yet. As there's a lot of architecture actually being brought to the site right here. See the mirrors, see the castle. They really want to be making sure that piano stays there, as it seems like.
2 more rounds for Outsiders to try and put a bit more distance into this. TT9, they've taken their time out as well, so they can only really try and hold on and attack a sided cafe. Isn't the most common draw and drive, but it sort of shows how well put together Outsiders have been on this, the lockout so far. Also, only 2 more rounds for Anne to get an opportunity to see Dan play Dockerby.
There is still an opportunity.
There's still an opportunity, Anne. Don't worry.
Of course, has received a bit of a buff due to the fact that debt players no longer are able to watch cameras.
They want to do this quick. They know a player's in the territory, and it's going to be Milon swinging right behind this castle as soon as it gets popped.
There's 2 X-Cars on it as well.
I think they're baiting the X-Kairos. They're hoping he gets close. There it is, the swing round, the pre-fire, but the player had just left. Exodus slipped away. Smelt the danger on the air.
2 seconds prior to that, probably lost a drone. So there was some old information they were working with at that moment in time. Or just a bit of a sound cue because the player was out there repelled for quite a bit. Milon just firing as he does not want to be shot down by anybody in the garage as he went for that final repel. Nico finds the head of Pasha though. That is going to be a massive first kill coming down for TT9. An opening that they are in need of because they have been lacking on that department. They need every advantage they can get as they are defending this top floor again.
Well, with Pasha gone, it was that bit of a lead-in through. Outsiders, they've struggled with time, and time was the one takeaway from the round that they lost. It was almost close to the wire on the previous times, though, so they've got to see if they can try and build behind it. Dan was, obviously, as we said before, a man of a moment with a 4K that really drove the team home on the second swing up here, and they're still trying to find that first bite, that first little lean-in here from the guns of TT9 that they can put pressure across it. They're 1 body down. There's 1 still on white stairs, I think 1 roughly around pillars as well. Yep, WTG, they have the stretch and extension that they need here, and they're just sort of holding at bay and waiting for Outsiders.
Oh, that's a great one.
To make a presence. Great play.
And that will open up the piano to be played right now because that mirror window is currently not more manned anymore. They just need to worry about Exodus, who is going to be on those white stairs, and the player that is playing near the bathroom as well of Nico. Going aggressive right now. Swings, gets one, goes for the second, but gets shut down. 3 on 3, 2 on 3 as we continue counting down with 30 seconds left on the clock.
Oh, Exodus got the revenge kill, retook the territory, still makes this awkward for them to try and clear Rask. He might, yep, he is swung. I was going to say he might be about to be swung behind the back of those flashes. And always still sat on the roof, too late to the party in the presence for anyone. I think there's a rotate coming up the stair set behind him. There's a fight that's going on in front of him. He has an awareness and a clue of all of the dangers being put across the board, but once again, hit, slowed, and scuppered and scarpered. TT9 able to take a second round.
The mirror window's doing what was needed here, just keeping them at bay for long enough, and as indeed TT9 takes that second round, it was Outsiders unable to deal with those mirror windows. The one that was played on the cocktail balcony before was shot out from a window on the east. Not done this time. It makes it a bit more difficult to go for the main push. He also had that mirror window in piano that they could only start to push, piano that is, as soon as that grenade kill came through on the player right behind it. And that should have been the turning point, but they were unaware of the player in the bathroom, who basically was completely locked off. They were unaware of Exodus that was playing on the white stairs, and well, suddenly you lose 2 more members, and the entire push just falls short. Back to the basement, though. And TT9, well, they've won two sites. It's going to be the third they hope to go to. And as they do, last time, remember, they almost managed to get that plant off. It was only because Nico was able to just make it in time, jump over the service area and stop the plant from going down. The Echo drones not in time in the position they needed to be in, partially due to the fact, of course, that there was the IQ, which is, again, here on Outsiders. They knew exactly what these yokai drones were. They knew that they needed to have a bit of pace as they went for the approach. They just had a bit too much pace with too many members, not having the cover ready for the jump over.
All right, Outsiders, can you try and keep this not level? You had a really good lead in at the start of this game, and it seems TT9's woken up to some of your games sooner than you've got yourself a little bit complacent and comfortable with the approach. You're getting a bit cautious. And this is one of the things I talked about at the beginning of this. When we see these well-threaded put-together holds and these takes that had a lot of clarity behind them, they had a lot of sort of power, it got a bit scrappy, it got a bit away from you, it got a bit how it was on the play days where you haven't quite hit the mark. And that's the worry right now, is when you're looking at the games ahead of you and the 25% roughly chance you could have, you've got to try and make sure that this is the one against the team that is the only team that hasn't got a win and isn't qualified, or possible of qualifying, off the board with a little bit more fervor.
Top 4 cleared out. First floor seems to be clear, as well as the track stingers again are being deployed. Means they can start opening up now vertically. Just put some extra pressure down onto the actual site. Open up that hatch as well to have yourself the opportunity to start dropping in. You see right here, they're spotting out those yokai drones, trying to figure out what position you could actually go for a plant with, or if they can actually try and find them. One of them is currently driving around or hovering around. Rask, he's ready, he's waiting for it. He feels like maybe a player is trying to follow up on it as well at the same time.
Well, the Echo drone is doing that reconnaissance work. We've seen them do the sort of outward bounds. You've got the player playing just at the swing at the bottom of the stairs. Most of them are still tucked inside, actually. I think they have a little bit more of an awareness based on where the Outsiders players are trying to set up. TT9, as we said before, it was a little bit of a later response. But if anything, Outsiders were the ones that had the complacency that had them punished here. Still breaks above. They're going for this a little bit later than they did before. They're trying to harness just a single player out of it, cut off the rotations and the routes through the standard approach. And now, as we start to hear the position, Scyther is the man that, as you called before, wasn't quite there before. Nico's the one who made the round before, and he's gone first.
Imagine playing this from the bomb chassis, might be receiving some pressure soon. Playing on the shotgun, but he gets wallbanged out, I believe, from above. Milan and Pasha drop in with a kill, and now they need to try and get that plan down. 20 seconds, time is starting to tick. WTG knows exactly what's happening as he sees the Talon Shield moving through. Is there any yokai drones left on the board, though? As Exodus is looking to flank around, gets picked up from the player onto the white stairs. That's one burst from the yokai drone. Still a second one in pocket, but he knows he needs to go for a bit of a challenge, and as the time starts to tick down, it's 45 on the clock. WTG now in a 1v5 situation, and they know exactly where he's at.
Yeah, this was a great read here from Outsiders. They did a little bit more work. They didn't trust that the site was as empty as they thought it was before, and they've been able to pay the price for it. There's two, though. Can't entirely count him out as of yet. He's pre-firing for the third. Does a lot of damage to Always, who's just a bit lucky to survive. The main gauntlet is getting to the kit, though. There's a player stuck on it. I'm not sure if they've deployed a Talon Shield or not. Don't need it. Pasha pops up, drops down, and it's a 4-2 half with 3 plants for Outsiders.
And that's exactly what they hope for here. Pushing themselves up in a very good first half as they... Again, we mentioned it before, chasing a full-fledged victory as they want to be chasing a potential major qualification. Had a bit of a slip-up, of course, against Rogue, where they, well, unfortunately not able to pick up any points. A 7-5 loss. An extra round, and that would have been a massive difference coming through. And they've done all they could in that first half. Now, needing to go to the defense themselves, it's important they continue with the momentum they have just built up. They need to start off with a victory here right away to alleviate a lot of their pressure. Because if now TT9 wins and then suddenly they win the next round, it's 4-4 and it's in anyone's ball game. There's no use of the mirror here coming out from Outsiders. Big difference compared to 2 of the defenses we've seen from TT9, the 3 we had.
Yeah, I mean, what Mirror allows is that big extension, the walls that we've just seen, not entirely reinforced, but the cutoff between Piano all the way back to Lumber, all the way back to that area. You just make that an awkward sort of period to transition across. You then have to hold yourself onto East and give yourself some safety that way, and you know, it's the different tack, different approach. But Outsiders, they're happy to sort of assume the mantle of swing.
There's no Pulse with an M110 jumping out this time.
Not this time.
Not this time.
No.
Those of you who missed it yesterday during APEC, we had that happen. Almost actually managed to pick up
Ground floor to someone rappelling on the roof.
Yeah.
That jumped out with the American shotgun.
Brought him down to 10 HP somehow.
With 30 shots.
Yes.
Is the somehow.
Almost had time to reload before he died.
Yeah. All right, but what we don't have is that. What we have now is TT9. Going for a standard approach, it's Cafe Dostoevsky. You will see this as your lead-in for pretty much any team, regardless of the weather, unless you're doing something a little bit kooky and crazy on the eastern side or a drop down. It'll be this sort of approach. They're going to get that wall electrified.
On a soft piece of the wall.
On a soft piece of the wall. It's the risk, and as now 90 starts to suffer a bit of pressure, there's a pop round. They're going to see if they can just try and get anyone out the back of it. Rask hits the hammer of the pre-fire of that DMR, but nobody's home.
No, definitely no one that got hit so far, and, you know, Outsiders, they know this as well. If they play passive enough, suddenly the time starts to tick down in their favor, and pushes need to be made. I was going to say, something just flew there for quite a while before it got destroyed.
It was really...
Not quite sure what it was.
I was also trying to work out.
It's like there's no candelas or anything like that, so it can be that. But either way, it got destroyed, and as these Syria laser gates are getting opened up right now, a Mission gets into the first gunfight, almost loses it out. He's about on 10 HP. He needs to be sure that he doesn't walk too close to these electrified walls, though.
And that's it. That whole wall is locked down. They have the ping on a player down in pillars. That grenade's just going to burn it out. There's ADSs behind it. Nico finds Milon. I'm assuming that was the pillar player caught out underneath. Danny's ready, locked and loaded on the swing around to catch anybody that tries to push, but 50 seconds, and that wall's still electrified. TT9 are trying to come up with a plan B right now because they don't have it. Obviously, Thatcher is off the board. They don't have anything that can really try and disrupt it without properly getting an angle in a fight, and Pasha finds a mission on the journey. WTG is just trying to cause some attention here, but nothing is being offered to them.
They need to make a play. They need to just start pushing through. Basically, White and Piano is off the board. They need to start pushing in. Find Always that is playing on this balcony right here to really open up. And as he finds Exodus, another one comes through. A triple kill from Always as he just gets them all from that balcony we just discussed. It's only going to be up to WTG now. Up on the East, Repel goes off, just deciding to take his time here. Just nothing really he can do from this moment, from this spot, and that will be Outsiders. As I mentioned, they needed to start it off with a win to alleviate a bit of pressure. They do that right away. That's 5-2.
That is 5-2. That's their first defense. They've been able to take one now of the couple that's required, but the journey is getting over the edge. The journey is finding themselves all the way comfortable and sitting with the 3 points. They cannot get to OT. I mean, technically they can, but they do not.
They prefer not to.
They do not want to risk it. It's not even that their journey is entirely in their hands ahead of them. That's the sort of... It's the double-edged sword of having teams ahead of you that are ones that aren't in the top 4. Is technically your games might be statistically easier to have that sort of dying run as your chance towards a major be out of the hands of the technical better teams, but also it means you cannot make the better teams bleed.
That's it, right? Like, if you will be up against, like, the number 4 place team in the last Playday, you're in 5th, you're 2 points away from each other, you win, that's it. Like, it's over. You knock them out and you find those points. If it's number 4 and 5 and, well, 4 plays against 8, they win, there's nothing you can do anymore about it. So
it's that sort of irritating situation here. Now, there is obviously some games that are back and forth in the top 4. We've generally got, I think, Eminem heading heads with a couple of these closer teams, especially, you know, you've got the teams around Outsiders as well, Heroic and G2
as well,
are sort of playing against them. Yeah, there are moments where you can hope that the top 4 teams make each other bleed, but for Outsiders, are sort of making the point their run is both in their hands, but also, unfortunately, outside of their hands.
Yeah, they need to do some stuff themselves and also hope other stuff goes their way. Either way, as the top floor is being cleared out here by TT9, again, methodical. You need to go top down if you want to be attacking this well, ground floor site, due to the fact that verticality is just so powerful. A lot of the side actually has a verticality that could be destroyed above it. You managed to open that one up. Suddenly there's a lot less safe places to play in, and you start seeing the defenders going outside of the direct bomb sites. That will then result into needing other pieces of utility to stop these plans from happening, such as Rask, of course, with those... Okay. Dan is just letting her walk by, doesn't care about the Gemini replicators.
You're not real.
But Yokai drones, as I was going to mention, are going to be more important as more of this flooring above gets destroyed.
Looked like they wanted to try and lean into a fight there, back against them. The Sledge is going to get some sort of busybody work done. It's a slightly different attacking approach that we saw happen. They're still going for the same sort of pace, but this time there's only the Sledge working on it. You compare it with the approach we had of Outsiders, where it felt like all 5 of them were sort of buzzing around each other. It makes trying to get a catch at the end of it tougher, but it also means it's safer here for the team, and they can try and get a little bit more width done first. The hatch itself gets it broken open. Nico is looking for maybe an angle in a fight of anyone just close underneath the grenade to bounce around the corner towards that shield. Doesn't get caught by the ADS, but does get the shield. Yeah, very clever.
Using the shrapnel range there, rather than having it pop up right next to the ADS, so that way you can actually play around it. Well done. Mission is very close to Pasha, and he probably doesn't know it. Pasha, he's just staying put. There is drones coming out. Oh, that is going to be the magnet that will catch that grenade, so he stays alive for now, but needs to be careful because the verticality is still on point. Another one being tossed in. Here at that pin, he's moving.
Yeah, that one is not going to try and risk the fight. And Dan, he takes care of Nico, gets rid of the Hibana. They've done most of the work they need to, but you still need another player as you're going for a drive. We talked about the body advantage and how tricky a wide site like this can be. Dan gets another pick there against WTG. Dan takes care of Scyther. Dan takes care of Exodus. And they are falling like flies in front of him, and he's more than happy to swat Emission. He's the last one left on the top of the hatch. He can sort of stay here and not die. There's an Echo drone, but he's not going to give Dan the ace. And I was going to make the joke there as he took care of Scyther, who was on Dockerby. And can we have Dan on Dockerby? Well, we have Dan and Dockerby at home.
He did it all from one table, by the way. He's getting them served to him. 6-2. 1 round away from outsiders, and it is also something we might not mention enough, but the first tiebreaker in the European League is round differential. So if they do lock this off with a 7-2 or a 7-3, that is going to be playing a massive role potentially in the final play there when it does come down to teams maybe being tied up in terms of points, which then, well, would help outsiders if they do have a higher round differential. So the bigger the win, the better it will be for them. Again, talking about factors within their own reach, stuff they can take care of themselves.
He's had an outstanding performance, obviously on the back of that 4K, now finds himself 11-3. And it's just sort of, you know, not that much different from, to be honest, a lot of the pressure that's been put on by the rest of his team. Sure, he's leading it, but the fact that you've generally got a positive KD all the way across the board, I think it was tougher to sort of see on attack where the biggest pressure to them was time. Here on defense, where they have that working for them, I think it's becoming more and more apparent just how well connected outsiders have been throughout this game.
I mean, as I mentioned, they can really just play with the time here. They can just sit still, be passive, let them jump into your lines of sight, because if you don't give them anything, they need to force. And if you start forcing through, you start making mistakes. That's how the defense can capitalize off you. And that's exactly what they did in those 2 rounds. Just let it bleed. Let that timer tick down. And play to the best of your abilities according to it. Twitch drone in first of Scyther, yet to find a kill in this game. We'll be finding 2 cameras first. Spots out the Malusi, almost loses his drone as a result. It's going to be Dan, though. Will survive, will fall back slightly as well. Still being droned out by Scyther. So far, no real harm done to any of the players. Well, either TT9 or outsiders. And as the next drone comes in, this one is meant to check if the top floor is currently occupied. And that's 1 player, that's 2 players currently spotted out. A mute gemmer and ADS gone as well before that drone gets lost. But that's a lot of utility taken out.
Yeah, Scyther's had a bit of a rocky game throughout this so far. Hasn't quite been able to find his feet and the energy in the derby that requires it. Or at least he can try and do some of that final work.
What?
The C4 Rask went on an adventure. And Exodus was the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow there, thrown over the top. And a huge blow. The Eon has gone. They've lost that sort of drive. 2 grenades were still in pocket as well, and they're going to be precious resources a bit missed on the back of it. The patch and the breakiness. The second Twitch drone's finding its way around. A good grenade from Emission does at least make some of the work from some of the remaining utility. At this point, they've got the pings on the last player. Mission's just going to swing. Do they know about the one tucked onto the hatch, though? That's potentially the big problem.
Don't think they do. There is going to be some concussions coming out, though, so they're definitely aware of a player being out there. Mission looking to go aggressive together with Nico, hoping to find some elevation. Finds one. That's Milan gone. Back on a 3 and 4. They know about the player on Lumber, so all they need to do now is isolate him, take him through. And as Mission picks up yet another kill, that brings it to a 2 and 4. They need to clutch this out on outsiders now if they want to lock it off here.
Now the wearing of the slightly faulty MI disc. Ignore that. There's nothing really caught in it. It's just a little bit of an audio.
Nighthaven needs to fix their stuff.
Nighthaven, Wami's discs. Oster needs to tweak those, but at this point, Pasha and Dan, or just Pasha, who's suffering from the little hole above. He looked like he went for a rotate, caught out on a drone. They'll catch him probably on his way back through. The plant is going down. Does he know? He has no idea. Oh, and that is a shame. Pasha, he just misplaced the call and gets caught out. 6-2-3. TT9 find their first in a while, but it is on the tertiary side of outsiders.
And there's always a bit of the worry, right? It's like the tertiary, they win. They need to start turning that around right now. They need to find that primary and the secondary to have an opportunity of finding that victory. But the issue is there is no more tactical timeout. And that means any adaptation they might make to the holds that are being tossed up by outsiders need to come on the fly. Need to come out during this pick phase, during the prep phase, when you have the opportunity to, well, re-pick your attacking lineup. Because if they don't, this game might end here. Timing, again, was an issue. It is just difficult to attack this top floor, because if you look at it, the only way in, it's going to be 2 hatches and 4 windows, or 5 windows that you can realistically use. Plus the skylight, but that doesn't often go out well. currently being highlighted by our observer, all the windows that are in the
So many windows.
direct entry. But a rappel through is not really ideal if you know there is defenders on the other side. And that is basically what the defenders are playing with as well. And that's why you usually see the red stairs being opened up first, or at least the hatch above. You then open up into piano, you get yourself a bit of ground you can work with, and you try and go on from there. Because basically red stairs is the only bit of safe ground you have as the attackers. The rest is a bit too dangerous to play around. And TT9, they know that, and thus most likely will be opening up those hatches first, but waiting to see if any C4s are coming over the corner, because sometimes you have that as the rappel sounds come through. A C4 flies in through one of those hatches. Not the case this time, and they will be opened up without any issue, just to see whether or not they will be able to take full control of that top floor.
Scyther picking up a slightly different version of a drone. Actually was on the Twitch before they swapped out to see if they can try and do some of the good work they did before. Breaking their way steadily across the top here and getting the open angles, and anything that might have been just caught round on the corner. They don't really have the time to get an easy drone out there. Sometimes with the floors, you just got to take a risk before it gets shot out. There's a steady watch though. Asher might be in a position to catch off anything that comes closer. The fight goes around the corner. The ping is of a bulletproof there. Dan's just giving the call. The stun comes out. They're putting pressure onto Cigar at the same time. Scyther's drone, that one gets called out as it tries to go all the way around the corner. Rask is still just sort of beating on the heart. That bulletproof is again providing all the intel that they can want for a swing, but it's also still the risk of the swing. They know you're going to be on that side of the door, and they know that they can just kind of line up close towards it.
But again, it's just wasting time now from outsiders. They need to stay active just long enough so they aren't actually going to be able to find themselves a safe route into the piano, because as soon as they do, that's when you can start opening up the walls. That's when you can start putting up a multi-dimensional push onto the actual site, because otherwise it will result into one of the players having to muscle through, taking them down head on as you push through the side, the middle of it, and all these angles that will face it. Oh, that didn't get it.
No, didn't get the bulletproof, didn't get any player behind the back of it. Dan is happy to just sit on Overwatch and keep watching over anyone that tries to put the pressure. Swinging around from the side of Cigar as well. All of them are stacked up, and with 50 seconds, they got to try and make sure there's a connection here. They're just going to have to sort of brute force their way around because they're not hitting 19 Pixel. The only single player that isn't currently on this swing round is Scyther watching from above, hoping he gets a lucky pick and a pluck over the top, but it's Nico that opens things up, takes the head of Rask with WTG quickly following. Pasha on the close angle is able to do some damage, gets caught out by Nico, who's the drive round on the back end. They're going to see if they can stick the plant. The fight goes through the top, but WTG actually pulls off just at the last second, stops the plant. The C4 was the cause. The swing round gets the man with the kit, gets dropped. The 1 versus 3. The rotate round, the reveal of the player. They've been able to get it recollected, but Dan's on a triple and a tear as he has throughout this game before 14 seconds. Scyther has to hit the ground. There's the ping on the player planting. There's the reveal of where Dan's at, 9 seconds. Suddenly they're stacked either side, close on the door. Scyther with the watch. Can't get the connection. A quad kill. He was denied the ace before. He's got one. It's Dan!
To lock it off, and it was a 2-on-4 situation, and Dan locks them all off one by one. He puts his hands into the air as well. It's like, I did it, we got that ace. Got so close twice before. And that is going to be a full 3 points for outsiders. They were looking forward to get those, because that puts them back into the race for a major spot. 17 kills from that.
I mean, we talked about how there might be some elements of a grudge match, and there might be some elements of teams wanting a bit of revenge. If that was the case, Dan got it. An outstanding performance from him, but outsiders, if they look this collected on some other games, who knows where the limit is?
Who knows indeed. They might be back on route towards a major, but we'll have to find out in the next couple of playdays whether or not that will be the case. Either way, that's 3 points. That's a pretty decent round difference as well. So without further ado, let's just toss it to a quick break before we head to the desk.